as you were talking. Okay, he's going to record it.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay. All right, everyone. This is our March Lake County Art League meeting and demo, and this is Tom Trausch, who's going to be doing a watercolor demonstration for us. So, and if you wait just for a second here, let's see if I can get it going here, because I also am going to be broadcasting this live on our Facebook page.
Push the right buttons there.
No, evidently I don't have permission to do this.
No. Okay.
Hang on.
Sure.
Shoot, I do this every time.
Hi, CC. I haven't seen you in years. Hi. And welcome, Jeff. Come on back, Jeff. You were here. It's interesting when you get more boxes. Hi, Mary. Each one gets a little smaller. Is anyone working with an iPad there? You probably have computers, most of you. I'm on an iPad, so our images are getting down to postage stamp size here eventually. I know when you get, yes.
How big is that page of paper?
Either Jeff's got to highlight it or I will. I can do it right there.
I've got you pinned.
Yep. There.
So you should be on there. Is
it on there?
You should be able to.
Do you see it now? Full frame?
No, I'm just wondering for scale, how big the is that a full?
Oh, I thought you meant on the screen. The painting is a half sheet.
Half sheet.
The whole thing. Here, I'm going to move the board a little bit, and you'll see exactly where I'm starting and ending here. There's the top. See it right there?
Yeah.
There's the top. So you're not missing much there. It's as far as high as I can get my camera, and the bottom is right there where right there. There's the end of it right there. So you do have the picture. Should I do it now, Jeff? You okay?
Yeah, we're fine. We're live streaming to our Facebook page.
Okay, good.
And I got 2 recordings going.
Okay, let's do it, guys. So again, thank you and happy spring. As you were talking, I still can see out in the western sky here. I'm in a studio with a beautiful north light windows, but I can look out the window in the west, and there's a little bit of salmon color, in the sunset. So it's just beautiful. First day of spring. The only other thing I'll add is I also teach a lot at the Chicago Botanic Gardens. I have a class going now Saturday, and then I have about 5 or 6 other ones proposed through April, May, June, July, August. They plan about 6 months ahead. So if you want to check the Chicago Botanic website, you'll see a bunch of stuff there. And then somebody mentioned I'll be with the Lake County Art League. Did I say it right? Oh, the Antioch group, rather. I'll be doing a workshop, a 3-day workshop in April for I don't know the correct title, okay, with Carol's group out of Antioch. So I'm honored to do that. So here we go. I encourage you, I hope y'all can hear me. I encourage you to what Jeff just said. If you have any comments or questions, I encourage you. It's like me standing with you in person at the Jack Benny Center. We've been there many times together. And I'd like you to just have a give and take, and I don't mind you talking while I'm painting. I just don't mind. I'd rather have you have a good time, and then me too have a good time while I'm painting. So just feel free to talk, ask, whatever. What I have here by way of introduction is this gentleman. This was from last October at Haynesville. It's last October. We had just come back from Portugal. My wife and I, we painted over there. It's a wonderful country. If you haven't been to Portugal, we got home in early September. Early October. We were there September and October. And then I ran over to Haynesville because this is my 3rd, 4th, or 5th year over there. I get lots of great material of people. I've gotten wonderful people paintings, and when they have the reenactment, some of you have been there with the smoke and all that. I did a nice painting with a bunch of guys with the haze and the smoke and other things. So I encourage you to go there. It's every October, off of, what is that, 176? What's up there, 120? I don't even know the routes anymore. So all I'm going to do tonight, Jeff, you tell me if I'm going to go too short, or not too short, but too long, especially. Just speak up, please. But I won't paint this whole painting. I can't paint in an hour a half sheet watercolor. What I'm going to do is, my goal here tonight is I love to do people, number one. I love to paint people. And all my goal is here tonight is to show you an approach to how I attack a painting. The first choice was important in paper, being a 300-pound piece. It takes a lot of abuse instead of a 90-pound or 140-pound weight paper. This 300 takes a lot of abuse. You don't have to stretch 300-pound paper because of its thickness. I just have a few pieces of masking tape around the perimeter. That's all I have here. I shouldn't run into much buckling, or if any buckling at all. But the choice of paper is important because I like to abuse the paper and really go after it when I have to. Normally I paint without opaque. Normally, I don't use much. I don't hardly use gouache or Misket. Sometimes I'll use Misket, and I'll put in a plug for Misket. I've switched brands from the stuff that Blick sells that always clogs up. I went to this brand here, and it's my only commercial tonight. Pebeo is a French brand. Pebeo, P-E-B-E-O, Pebeo drawing gum, but it's very liquid. You can hear it. You can hear it, how liquid it is. And I use the same applicators from Blick that were clogging up before. I bought empty ones, and that's what's in here now. And it'll come out very freely, and it does a great job. It doesn't clog up. So there are two ways of basically, some of you, again, I'd love to get more discussion with you, but I want to paint also. Some of you are watercolorists, I know, and some are not. There's two basic approaches to watercolor painting by way of introduction. One is called the direct approach, and that is, let me show you my photograph because that'll help you also orientate. Here we are. Here's my reference photo for this. And I followed it fairly closely in drawing it. The direct approach is I mix a value and a color for whatever I see in any given area. I mix up that color and value and paint that direct, as close as I can one time. But the other approach is glazing, which is putting a wash, usually darker, over a lighter wash that's already dried. The key to that is not to pick up the first wash. Normally, we're going to be altering a painting as we go. I mean, that's just painting. You're making changes as you go. So the best news about watercolor, transparent watercolor, is painting from light to dark. I can put a darker wash over a lighter wash to make it lower in value, but I can also change the hue. Let's just say I have a lot of yellow in my first wash and I want to make it, obviously, let's say I want to make it greener. So I just put a little bit of blue wash over my yellow wash and that'll green that up. So I'm glazing that way. I'm glazing. It's like layers. And Peggy McNamara, if some of you know Peggy probably, she's a master at how many layers of glaze. She has a show in Chicago right now, by the way. I can't remember, Columbia, somewhere. So with all that chit chat out of the way, I one more time, I encourage you to ask questions and talk. I'm going to basically paint directly, and then I'll go from there. I don't know how to solve this big area here, this big blank area. I'm not sure. I may end up being a vignette, meaning I might not paint it all the way out to the edge. It's a huge, let me show you the photo reference again. It's a huge amount of grass, of negative space. My choice would have been cropping it somehow, but I might just start to suggest it and then not paint the whole thing out to the corner of the paper. I'm not sure. I just kind of, I react to what's going on in front of me. So let's paint for a while, and please talk to me anytime, all right? Here's my palette, really ugly. Here it is. I used it today. I was painting with it today. I just mixed this color here. It's, I won't get specific with all these things, but this is yellow ochre and a little bit of warm green, like olive green. So I'm mixing some of the grass things in the background there. That's all I'm doing here. I love to paint people. And when you paint people, and I teach workshops in people, also painting people in watercolor, could be any medium. The gesture is the most important thing. Like, what is he doing? He was resting on this cannon wheel, on the cannon wheel area before the reenactment of the battle. And I thought, this is cool. He's not posing at all. He was just laying in the sun. And I thought, this is absolutely great. So let's get something down on the paper. I hope you all can see well enough. I won't be chit-chatting the whole time, but I'm just going to start with some color in the background. I know what I'm going to do with him. I just don't want to paint him only. So I'll tell you what, see, I'm going to splay the brush. This is a number 12 Kolinsky. And I'm gonna push it around here and just make some texture-ish things here, okay? Not worried about the brush, it'll come back to its point. So I just want to get something down. This will act as a foil to my subject. It's gonna be a dark subject, if I squint, a dark subject. In fact, maybe I can pull this photograph into view for you better. How about if I do that? This might help a little. Why don't I just do this? I'll put him, I gotta put him here where I can see him real easy. So I think most of you can see that. So there, that's what I'm working from, but I can't get him right over my painting too much on him there. So I'll just kind of go as I go, like pretending I'm in the studio by myself here on a Monday night painting. And this is what I would be doing. You know, I'd be playing, and this is just wet in the wet stuff. And I'm setting up a foil for him. This is a warmish yellow. And I'll drop in a little green. There's a lot you can do with watercolor. It is not set in stone. Well, you know, like people think, oh, gee, I'm stuck now, I'm stuck. I'm gonna draw a little bit with paint here, looking at the outline of his cuff and sleeve. Then I'll get into him quite shortly. I'll get into him, okay? There. Just kind of have fun with this. Don't get I paint pretty loose to start, and then I'll tighten up as I go. So, you know, just there. See, I might just use some of that white paper. That's kind of nice. I didn't plan on that, but I might end up with that. I don't know. I'll paint some grasses later, but at least I got to start. And that's the hardest thing, is just starting. And Jeff, I've got to clock in my studio, Jeff, but you keep tabs if I miss the, what you want, you know, if I go too far or something, just let me know, please. So
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Thank you. I'm squinting at my photo reference, and this is going to be a light in those area against the dark. So I'll darken this even a little bit more to emphasize this focal point of my subject. All right. I'm just drawing with paint now. I'm just drawing on dry paper. I tend to work dry, but I do a lot of wet next to wet. Besides wet into wet, I do a lot of wet next to wet, and I let it run and do its own thing on the paper. I'll have a wet look, even though I'm painting on dry paper. So that's just kind of what I'm comfortable with. See, right away, that makes him come forward just against that little swatch. If you notice, I hopefully didn't bore you with color. I go from that green to a yellow green to a little bit of warmth in there, a burnt sienna and the raw sienna there, or whatever. So it's not just like I mix up one color. I let things mix on the paper and then go from there.
Tell us though what colors you're introducing as you go, okay?
I'll try my best.
Okay, thank you.
I kind of went through these here with olive green, and there's a mixture of ochre and olive green and the yellow greens, and then I dropped wet into wet some burnt sienna. This is raw, I believe, raw sienna. So you got to start, you know, and we got something going. And then I'm going to jump right to the subject. And I always know, as a watercolorist, I always know I can go darker, and that tends to be what happens. I think I'm painting dark enough, but I never paint on the first wash, and it never ends up that way. Now I'm going to mix up a deep color here of cobalt and a purple, okay? And I'm going to make a very definite statement here. A very definite statement. This kind of it helps set the parameters of the value scale. I'll have the value scale from the pure white paper right here in his beard and sunlight to the darkest shadows in his hat and the shoulder. It's going to get really dark. But right away, I've set up the entire, well, that can go even darker, what I painted. I'm going to use some what's called neutral tint. And that is it's not black, but it looks black, and it leans towards purple a little bit. And we'll do a little negative painting here. This will be, I'm coming up near where the strap is that goes across his chest. So I'm painting in sections right now. I'm not painting a lot of wet, loose areas. I'm painting tight things because my focal point's going to be pretty tight. So what do I want to do here? Let's just keep painting. And I'm going to mix up a mother color for his jacket that's in the sunlight. I'm mixing some cobalt. It'd be hard for me to name every color, to be honest with you, as I paint. Cobalt. It's got to be a little warmer, so I'm going to add some alizarin to it. Too much alizarin, so I go back to cobalt. And I got to gray it down, so I'm adding that neutral tint. It's too purpley, still too purpley. So I'm going to go back to cobalt. So this is how I'm arriving at, and I test drive it. This is called the test drive. This is too purple. So we're going to add some cerulean blue. That's my test drive, my test stroke. And by the way, this will be the, that's good. This is a good combination. I'm adding cerulean blue on top of it. Here. There's a nice little ribbing of red. Let me just take my time here, going down here. It's a wonderful ribbing. I don't know the different ranks and everything else that was during the Civil War, what the troops had, but there. See, right away, everything gathers at this point. It's make it special. Is that believable? Sort of yes, sort of no. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. I use a lot of M. Graham as watercolor brand. I have some Daniel Smith. I have some Holbein. I highly recommend M. Graham, partly because what they put in there is honey. Literally, honey is in each tube, and it keeps the pigment from drying out in the tube, and I think it enriches the intensity of some of the color. It's totally compatible with any other watercolor brand. I called them up on it and found out. I called this. I was in a checkout line at Blix in Schaumburg, and I was getting ready to buy M. Graham. So I called. There's something, you know, they had a flyer there. It says the question, you know, they had a color chart. That's what it was. And so I had this question, you know, can I mix this with other pigments? Watercolor brands. And I call, and the guy answers, and he says, "Hello." I says, "Hello. Are you with M. Graham?" "Yeah." We got chatting, you know, and talking while I'm checking out. And he says, "Yeah, we got all these bees. We got all these hives out here in the field, you know, with the honey, making honey for their paint." I thought that was cool. That was cool. Let's keep going, guys. I'm doing a lot of drawing right now with paint. Very cognizant, more of value probably than hue. Of course, the hue is partly, it is important. I can't just say, well, I'm going to paint it green now. No, but I'm really, really pushing my value. And I want that to get over that hurdle of sneaking up or tiptoeing towards darks. I really want to blast away and live with the results. Or if I have to, I'll change them, alter them. Still drawing with paint. So we'll keep going. I'll show you a little about flesh tones. I'm going to get into that. Just draw here. Let's see. He's got a little visor. It's hard to see, I know, in that little, what do you call it? The view that you have on your screen. There's a little visor that sticks out right there, and it curls back. And this is going to be a button. There's some buttons I have to leave here. I'll see. I left. The only negative about painting on dry paper like this is going to leave a lot of hard edges. So you got to keep on top of the edges. I'm adding water right now. The last thing I want to do is work with any brush smaller than this for this size painting, a half sheet. So here's again, I'm just making it a little bit darker just to have a point of reference here. There we go. And I'll move on. And what that means is I'm let these edges dry. So if I put something in here, it's going to bleed. It's going to run. It's going to draw the other color. And I don't want to do that. So I'll paint elsewhere in the painting to buy time. I do have a hair dryer here, but I'm not going to use it right now. Wonderful little caps. And it's a wonderful place. If you just want to get out and walk too, it's just a great thing to go to. So this blue stands out too much. So I'll just, instead of taking it away, I'll add it. I'll add it down here. I'll add it down here. Keep all this wet. See, I got too many dry edges, but the good news is it's going to be dark. So I can pick that up okay. So let's start doing it instead of talking about it here. All right, just mixing the dark now, the same basic colors, the blue and the purple, adding the neutral tint because I'm pushing the value even down further and further because the sunlight is from our left. And see here, this is the dark I need over here. And let's just get it. It's kind of an indiscriminate shape here. So let's just make it that way, indiscriminate. Generally, you want your brush to follow the stroke, to follow the form. For instance, here's his shoulder here, see? I'm painting it this way. I'm following the form instead of a cross or otherwise. Stroke follows form, real simple. And all this goes into dark here. It's gonna be a real dark mass, but I'll get off of this area fairly soon because it's going too wet to go into something next to it, wet next to wet. So I'll vacate this area fairly soon and paint elsewhere. You know, it's not, I don't waste time, meaning I don't wait like, oh, let's just dry, let this dry. I can't go do his face right now. I just go paint elsewhere. So stroke, get this thing following downward. There's a light side to his coat and there's a darker side, the shadow side. So this is the light part of his jacket. All this is light part, but don't end up with all hard edges. So let's get some of this stuff softened up. At least I have an underwash here. Save this little area where the red stripe is. So the top parts are lighter, the sleeves and all that. The shoulder here, I can pull that out here a little bit with lifting paint, just a little bit. You know, his shoulder looks odd because he's underneath this axle. All right, it's underneath the axle here. So don't think that the drawing is that far off. So I'm just softening edges now. I'm not trying to do any final painting. I just want to let all this bleed soft. There you go. Now I'll paint elsewhere, like I said. What I just started to do here in the beginning is I'm working, well, in fact, the whole thing I've done so far, I'm working from the focal point out. That's what I'm doing in this case. I have no rhyme or reason for that. No special reason like, oh, I better do this or do that. Or I always do this or I always do that. I don't. I just feel like, all right, I'm going to paint somewhere. I got to start somewhere. And this just felt like the right thing, putting a little background and then a little of, I'm just drawing again, just drawing. There we go. Okay, I can live with that. I don't mind this color change. I don't like the drawing very well, so I'll clean that up a little. I don't mind the color change of blue to purple, reddish to purple. I'll let that go for now. So I have a warm color. I have cool colors. You know, these are basically complements here, purplish blue, and then yellow, some yellow in my background color. Now let's go, I'm going to switch from this number 12 round. All right, I'm going to a 6 round. Good brushes. And like I said to somebody, I can't blame it on the brushes anymore. I have some good brushes, so I can't say, oh, it's the brushes' fault. So let's widen this head out here. So I'm just drawing, constantly drawing with paint. My wife Gail just came home. Some of you know Gail. Chris, you know Gail. Yeah, hi Gail. So let's just finish drawing his hat. I didn't get this guy's name, but he was mellow. He was very mellow. There's a lot of characters that are, what do you call it? Dressed up, you know, enactment. Men and women. I've gotten some good things out. Okay, got real good things out of this area to paint. I'm going to widen his shoulder more. I'm bringing it back further. It doesn't feel comfortable the way it ends. It's too short. So I'm just adding some paint here. But the main thing is tonight, you know, with limited time, I mainly want to develop his face for you. I think that's worth something. Yeah, but I'm letting this dry and this dry. The way you test it is test it with the back of your fingers, not the palm. It's actually a little more sensitive for temperature. I'm testing it right here on my hand, the back of my palm here, the back of my hand. And that tells me, of course, if it's cool, I just painted something here. It's very cool. But if it starts to dry, it's cool there. And this is not, and this is least cool because I painted it first. But that tells me how much moisture is still in the paper. Excuse me. And whether I should go back in. Here we go. I'm mixing, here, I'll show you my palette. Just because I don't have a good enough angle. Here's what I have so far. I always have clean mixing areas, always. And I'll just take a short break for mention my colors. I always put them on the palette the same way. This is my traveling palette as well as my studio palette. I don't have 3 or 4 palettes. I paint with this in the field in Portugal. I had this in my backpack and did a painting a day, basically. It works real well. Yeah, the colors that I always put in the same wells. I have my greens here, and I'm going to go pretty fast, but he's just recording it, so you could always pick it up on that. My warm green, olive green, viridian green is a cool green, and this is perylene green, a Daniel Smith color. Let me wash my brush out and I'll show you. It's a wonderful grayed down green. There, it's grayed down. It's great for nature. Chris, you're going to go out painting, I know. See here, it's that. It's a
Beautiful.
wonderful color. Paraline green, and then I go to cobalt teal. Help me out here. Cerulean, cobalt. This is actually called ultramarine deep ultramarine violet. This is a cool red, a magenta or an alizarin, warm red, like a vermilion or a cad red light. Obviously the orange, cad orange. I'm not sure. This guy's been hanging in my palette for a long time, but I don't know who he is. He's not paying any rent. So I don't know. I use it once in a while, but it's too close to my other yellow. And this is the cad yellow here. This is quinacridone gold, and that's the most deceptive color when you look at it. It looks like a brown burnt sienna thing, but you put water with it, this is the color you get. It's it's a wonderful color for fall, especially. Quinacridone gold, or quin gold. You could just say quin gold. Quinacridone gold. They make quinacridone red, quinacridone this, quinacridone that, but it's a great color. All right. Yellow ochre, I get down to my earth tones here. These are my earth tones all in this part. So I go from greens to blues to transition to purples to reds to yellows. It kind of makes sense. Raw sienna, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, I think raw umber, and this is that neutral tint, which is right here on my palette. I'll just put water with it so you can see it here. See? It actually, if you're in person, it has a little bit of purple in it. It starts leaning to purple. So those are my colors. But the more importantly, I always keep clean areas. It's not a big palette, as you can see. If it gets dirty, really dirty and messy, I'll just take a sponge and wipe it up. Now, what I've done is I've taken away some of my mixing areas by showing you this. So with that said, I'm going to pick up some sponge here. Just get rid of. I want some cleaner areas to work in, which is really important. The sponge, I have water in the container here, and there. Get rid of that. So I want to mix clean. I always want to mix clean. Yes, please.
Do you use any permanent greens? I don't think any of those are permanent, are they?
No. You mean the name of the color or the permanency of them?
The permanency.
They're okay. They're permanent colors. What do you mean? You mean for lasting wise?
I mean that are,
what?
Dyed in the wool. I mean, you can't move them, you can't change them, you can't pick them up.
Oh, I can move them.
Seriously. All those, none of those are permanent greens that you showed us.
What the heck would I want a permanent color for in watercolor and transparent?
No, I know. I avoid permanent green too because you can't work with it.
Oh, I've got some in a tube here from Holbein, a little tube, and I don't use it.
Right. Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
The important thing to know is on your palette is to have a warm and a cool of every primary at minimum, a warm red and a cool red, et cetera, et cetera. That's at minimum. And then you want to do in your you want to buy your secondaries if you want, like I have greens. My palette changes, not a great amount, but there are certain artists that I read about and see their work and I admire. So of course, if I buy their colors, I'm going to be a wonderful painter like them, right? It doesn't work that way, but at least I can enliven my palette. And yeah, this guy looks so scrimped here in the back. Look at that. I'm looking at him on the monitor. So let me redraw him. I'm just going to add some more dark. He looks so crunchy, even though he's against the wheel. Let me get him drawn correctly. You're just roughed in here. He should be back here. This should be his back at a minimum right there. How you doing, Gail? So I'll mix it. I'll go back to my basic mixture here of dark cobalt, neutral tint, and that purplish red. No, can you turn it on? Yeah. Thanks. That's okay. Gail's put me in the dark here. Okay. So this is a too warm a red I just mixed. You can't see it. It's way too warm. So I add cobalt to it, the same dark puddle, and I make it cooler. The uniform is bluish, not purple, and it's not warm. So what I didn't do the first go around, I'm doing now. And if you notice, my hand comes way down here on the nickel ferrule, on the ferrule here. Why? More control. Further back you go, great for loose washes and the first washes and for freedom. Here, I'm trying to draw more accurately with the paint. So I do this automatically. My hand comes down here for deeper, more control. So here's this. Now here's the dark wash I wish I would have had in the beginning. This is not black, by the way. If you were here live in Woodstock, Illinois, you would see it's not black. It looks dark. It is dark as anything. So what do I do with it? Here, let's use it as a bonus. I'm looking at the photo, and I'm redrawing now with I'm putting my dark shadow side in. I just intended to do the back side, but now why not use it right here? I'm drawing the dark shadow folds in his uniform. Let's get this going down here. So this is all dark. That's why I use a large brush. That'll be the dark side. And why not use it up here? I'm going to get my hand in here, but that's the only problem. So if it's on your brush, look around. Where can I use it? And that's for any kind of painting, indoor, outdoor, anything else. If you have a color mixed, look around your subject, whether it's nature or a photograph, and just say, you know, is there something like it elsewhere? So you don't have to keep remixing and remixing and remixing something. Just use it. There. Now see that increases the sunlit effect. All the same while these have been drying. This and this are dry enough now for me to approach his face. Jeff, if you can hear me, should I have to kind of know kind of time-wise, meaning I don't have to have an exact time, Jeff, but I have to kind of know when to attack something and when to paint around something. Should I just kind of plan for like quarter after the hour, something like that, roughly?
Yeah, why don't you plan for that for the time being, and when we get there, we'll see if we you want to continue a little bit longer.
Okay. I know you had dinner. Hey, now when I come way down here, there are grasses and stuff that are growing in front of him. So what I'll do is on this dry paper, I'll just use my darker value and leave my light stuff like here. This suggests the grass coming this way. See, I'll leave this stuff cut in. That's my first wash, the lighter wash under it. And I'll use that as part of my grasses that are actually originating down here. Watch the edges. I keep telling myself, you watch the edges, let this run, let this just go. It's going to get dark way down here. Let's get up into here. Let's get right here above him, and then I'll go into his face. And that I'm looking at my clock so I can time it out here. How much I should paint in each given area. Now, please ask anything you like or comment. I'll try my best to answer you. I'm just redrawing. I'm redrawing with paint. Instead of always thinking a pencil has to redraw something, I redraw with paint. I can reshape things and redraw things. You know, not just always the, what do you call it? Not just always the, I let the paint do the work too. There. Well, let's go behind him now. That's a warm dark. Right behind him. It's the inside of the wagon wheel in shadow. And it's a warm dark. So where do I go? I go to neutral tint. I could have used the blue there, which I think I will, just for the heck of it. And then I go to my alizarin, my warm red. I go to some burnt sienna. If you mix a brown and a blue together, any brown and blue together, what are you going to get? If you mix brown and blue, anybody? Gray.
Black.
You'll get a gray if you mix a brown and a blue. I made this really dark because it's at the focal point, but it's a warm dark. Here, I can warm it up a little with burnt sienna. Right here, I'm gonna do some negative painting around this strut axle here. I'm warming it up slightly, but at the same time, I'm drawing and reshaping here with paint. One little thing I could maybe pass on to you. When I drew this wheel, no matter if you're right-handed or if you're really kind of odd like Chris, left-handed, I think. No matter if you're right-handed or left-handed, see, watch now. Here, let me get the whole wheel in I'll pass this little thing on to you here. Here we are. Here's my entire wheel in this painting right there. Instead of me trying to draw it this way, like my hand is doing, here's what I did. I turned it 90 degrees. Look, and look, and I corrected my bad drawing the other way that I started out showing you. This is so easy for me to sweep and draw this way than it is to paint it, to draw it or paint it vertically. See what I'm saying? It's so easy for me to do that and to just move it around a little bit is all I'm saying. So let's
Good
continue.
clue.
Huh?
Good clue.
That was worth everything. You paid big money to get in here, so hey. So now again, I just a little bit of drawing, and then I'll get into my friend.
How flat is your easel right now? Are you at an angle?
Yes, sir. I always prop my work up, always. Here's what I'm on right now, the thickness of this masking tape, about 2-inch. The reason is there's a very, not that this is real important, there's a slight gravity pull when you prop it up, but more importantly, you see me in a little screen, I'm standing. I always paint my painting standing in the beginning and probably the middle washes too, in the adjusting washes. The only time I sit down is when I get to my small brushes, my riggers and my real small brushes. I'll sit down for detail. But what I'm getting around to is I prop it up because standing, I am looking at this scene right now exactly at 90 degrees. My line of vision is at 90 degrees to the surface. It's not tilted. I know if I let this down, let's say I have a bigger piece here too. And if I let it flat and I'm starting to draw somebody like in a bigger shape, in a bigger format, I can start distort it. I can distort it real easy because it's not at right angles to my view. Remember in art school, you used to have those horses, like wooden horses you'd sit on or something like that. Well, it always had a thing in the front where you could rest your backing board against on the horse. And the reason is, I believe, so you could see exactly in the right perspective what you're drawing, like especially life drawing. So, all right, see, this is really dark. It's not black. Let me emphasize that. Here's some more pure burnt sienna. So it's easier for me and more easier and correct to prop this up and see if I'm drawing it in the right mode. There we are. Let's go down to this gentleman's face. Usually I get the names of these people. And I didn't get his name. This wheel's a little cockeyed. Now, see here, I'm going to turn it this way to just look at this dark inside right here. I'm going to pretend this goes all the way around this way. So it goes through here. There. That feels a little better that way. So I just corrected my drawing. So I don't know the guy's name, but let's go. I've done portraits from these reenactors in the other years. Straight portraits, you name it. So where do you start? I have a clean mixing area in my palette. He's Caucasian, so it's going to be warm flesh. And I'm going to, Caucasian, most flesh is made up of, red, yellow. In fact, it's made up of the primaries, red, yellow, and blue. And you're going to mix some form of red and some form of yellow, and you're going to cool, and that makes it orange, red and yellow. So you got to cool it down and slow it down with a little bit of complement, which is blue. So I'm looking at his shadow right now. I'm looking at the shadow in this face right there. Not the light. I'm mixing the shadow first. I'm mixing ochre. I don't know what I have here, to be honest. Ochre. Here's some burnt sienna. I'm mixing a warm dark. I see some purple in there in my reference. And I put a little bit of the purple in here. Is it warm enough? No. I'm going to put some cad red in it. And then I'll test drive it here. So I'm going to paint a shape. Let me see if this is way off. This drawing is off here. So where's his nose? Here. So this is going to be my shadow. It's too red. I'm going to add a little orange, which is basically adding yellow. Too orange? Yeah. So I'm feeling my way through it right now. And this drawing is off in the bill of his cap. So I'm concentrating on the shadow that's going to go across his face. The shape of his shadow. Not good enough. It's got to be darker and warmer. So I'll make it darker and I'll put a tiny bit of purple in here. Because that's what I'm seeing. I'm painting what I'm seeing. partly knowledge, but mostly what I'm visualizing, mostly I'm painting what I'm seeing. Now, what does that do? Not a lot. It's not too far off. It needs to be cooler. So I'm taking a little, what do you call it? Cerulean blue. I'm going to cool it down a little bit. I'm putting cerulean blue into it. I'm graying it down. Just creating a shadow shape. There's a beard coming up. Important, but not real important. Let's pass over that. Just be aware of it. And let's go. Now I'm going to do some negative painting here. See, squint at this area. You see how that did the sunlight, how it aided the sunlight. I haven't painted the light part of his flesh, but this gives the shadow cast by his bill of his cap. I'm reshaping it right here for his eye socket there. That's good. That's very good. The eye, or excuse me, the ear, amongst other things, the nose, the ear have a lot of warm blood in it, a lot of red. Now that's a little too much overboard, but not a lot, not too far off. One thing I've learned I could pass on, I hope, to you, in all the years I've been painting people, and I love people. I love to watch people. I sketch them all the time. I think Chris does, and some of you do. Whenever I travel, I have a sketchbook, and I'm drawing people constantly. Closer to home, whenever I go to the doctor's office, guess what I carry with me? Sketchbook. And I'm constantly doing people that are waiting or the receptionist. So here's what I'm going to pass on. The red that's in the ear area. Here's what I was going to say. If you want one thing to take away from this little demonstration tonight, overstate the color that you think is in the flesh. And all that means is don't make it a wimpy combination of red, yellow, or a little blue. Be bold, because it never dries as beautiful when it looks like it's wet. And what I've learned is I've got to overstate it. I got to put more red than I think, or more yellow, or more this, or more that, to get what I really want out of it. And because it doesn't dry like I wish it would dry, and that's a fact. So I overstate. I push the color even more. I'm just looking at my reference as I'm doing this and talking, and I just keep drawing and redrawing. See, I just keep adding little things that I see. This comes down nicely. This will represent part of his beard. You can see there's a softness to it. And just keep kind of going around. Now, paint the shadow. I haven't painted the flesh color. Okay, I just said to you, paint if you have it on your brush. Here we go. I'm looking around. I said, hey, I see these same reds in his nose. Take the time, if like a subject like this, I think you have to be, if you're painting fairly realistically, which this is, my intention, take the time to draw it correctly, and don't slapdash it and say, well, that's my impression of it. You know, I'm kind of thinking of this. And get it drawn halfway right. Yes, you can correct things as you go, but try to be as accurate before. Take the time to draw it. The underside of the nose, the nostril area will always be warm like a burnt sienna. The nostril, always paint the nostril warm. I don't see his nostril exactly, but it's a sharp edge right here, right there where the sun stops it right there. That's uphill a little bit, I think. So now I talked about putting red. I'm going to go to CAD red, pure CAD red. It won't be a dramatic amount, but I have pure CAD red on the brush, and I'm going to pump it into his nose. Again, I emphasize, don't panic and say, oh boy, it looks like he's bleeding, like he went a couple of rounds with Ali or something. Leave this dry. I can guarantee you it will not dry this good as it looks when it's wet. You're going to say, oh, it's way too red. Let it dry. So here's my red-yellow combination again. I'm pushing the color. More importantly, I'm looking at the shape. I'll get it real close to the camera. Looking at the shadow shape right there on his cheek, on this side of his face. I'm not going to paint. I may paint the light part of his flesh later, but right now I'm concentrating on the shape of the pigment of his shadow in his cheek here. So I'm pushing red. I got to soften this edge. I'm also shaping the beard as I come across here. So this is a turning form. It's a little cheek. It's cheek, and there's a lot of flesh. I put a lot of blood in it, red, but now I'm softening the edge just with water, and I'm rounding it. I'm softening it as I go. I haven't done anything with his eyes or sockets or features other than work on his nose a little. Excuse me. I'm going to put a little cool red in his cheek because I just felt like it. Like right here. This is a little more. This is burnt sienna. Or I'm sorry, alizarin. There. And again, don't panic and say, oh, it's way, way, way overboard. No, 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 no. Leave it go. But do keep the edge soft. This is important right here. Keep these edges where there's whiskers and the front. At the very least, I'm going to sneak up and put the minimal amount of wash on his front of his face in the light. I don't want to make this too dark because I'll lose that whole feeling of sunlight. This is the front plane of his face. Now I just put a little wash, but I'm adding water. So there's still a distinctness. It's not white flesh, but there's a distinctness from highlight on the nose, shadow side nose, frontal plane of the face, light, dark. So it's going light, dark, these stepping stones. And what I just did is I just dialed up the sunlight on his face. If you look at it, I'm going to the purple right now. Why? Because I see it in his beard right here. I see some purple. Another thing, I think that's of paramount importance is get the value correct. That means the tone. Get the value correct. You could paint different colors. I just put blue. I just put some blue into here. As long as the value's right, you can change hue, meaning color, but don't change value. Get the value correct. That's paramount because you can get away with colors. There doesn't have to be, the obvious color. As long as your value is correct, the person will accept it as being correct. There. So I got a little variety going in his face. I need to look closer, but I'm not going to do it right now. How are we doing? 8 o'clock? Okay. Let me just keep going here a little further, and I'm going to come back and draw. So I have a number.
Keep going.
I have a number 6 round brush. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let
Just keep
you.
going.
Yeah. I'll let you know maybe about 10:30, 11 o'clock when you can quit.
I tell you, I'm coming for breakfast, Jeff. Come on. Now, everyone, I'm just let me take the photograph away, but I want to pull this close to the camera. There. And if that doesn't feel, you see the sunlight on his face.
Wow.
And I don't want to bore you with color. Now, really look at the colors. If you can see it on your monitor, thank you. I'm going to try to get more light. Look at the colors, the purple, the reds, and the yellowishy things. What's not good now are the edges around his beard. But I wanted to show you that close up.
Beautiful.
I thank you. The other thing we could always take away is try to paint something that you enjoy painting. And we do have a lot of choices, unless it's a commission. Choose something, I don't care what it is, that you as an artist want to paint, that you enjoy painting. And that's hard to do some days. I think we're honest with ourselves. We're not that motivated sometimes, or it just doesn't appeal. But I just keep looking and looking until something really resonates, and then I paint it. If you enjoy what you're painting, it should show. Instead of it, I hate the assignment when the instructor said, I hate it, and I try to avoid it. Let's all paint the same thing. I do it once in a while in my class, in my Zoom class. I'll paint along as a learning experience, but I try not to do much of it there. Yes, you can learn from it, but there's enough mimicking going on. And I'm going to darken a little bit here. Now see, I've been painting really tight with a little brush here. Now I'm going to loosen up and paint looser elsewhere. See, I do this back and forth stuff. His nose stands out a little too much. Let me squint. Oh, I'm going to lift. Just water, paper towel, or Kleenex. And I'm going to lift this plane of his nose right here, the bulbous part right here, is catching sunlight, which I don't have. So and by the way, when I lift, I usually do it, watch my brush, in little circles. I do it in little circles instead of like this way and this way or that way. Following the form, I actually do it in little circles when I'm lifting or softening an edge. I don't know why, because it doesn't leave a distinct edge of what I'm doing after it. If you follow what I'm trying to say, I'm going to blot it. And that helps with the form. I got to do a little bit more. Circle, circle, tickle, tickle, right? Yeah. All right, let's stop there. Now we got this gentleman started. The other thing I highly recommend, and again, it goes back to paint. I love people. I've said it 4 times already. I highly recommend when you paint flesh in one area, i.e. the face, paint the other flesh that's exposed. And in my case, the hands. If a person has summertime shorts or something, paint the legs. When you have your red mixed up, your warm flesh, whatever flesh color, whatever the person is, try to paint all the flesh at the same time, because you already have the mixture there, and it's going to be indigenous to that person, so, unless there's sunburn and all that. So I won't do all. I'm just going to block in the hands. Let's do it that way, time wise, because what I'll do is I'll show you. I'll do a little blocking of the hands using some of these colors. I think we make things difficult. All of us do as artists. We make it more difficult than it really has to be sometimes. And what I'm getting to is what I just did here, I'm going to repeat in his hands. And then what that means, and I'm not talking about the color. What I'm talking about is the hue in this day in Haynesville, there was sunlight, a beautiful September or October Saturday, maybe, or Sunday, I don't remember. But all the thing I want to point out is simplicity of, there's the light side to the face, and then there's the shadow side to the face. There's the light side. Let me get my photograph where you can see it. There's the light side to his hands and the shadow sides to his hands. This is what I talk about simplification. And how I approach that is I paint the light. Now, I just did the opposite here. Normally, I would put the lighter wash in first, not all the time, like I didn't do it there. But let me get a little for his mouth in here. This is going to bug me if I don't do. This is the most subtle shadow right here. So it's underneath his beard. It represents the corner of his mouth. And he's got to turn. See, I put a little dot there. And it looks like he's ticked off and didn't get to the concession stand or something there. This is too, see, it looks gruff now. So I'm going to soften it even more. I'm going to restate it. And then I'll go to his hands. But I'm trying to simplify when I get to the hands here. Yeah, see, that suggests the corner of his mouth, just that little tiny piece right there. This beard is too sharp. I'm going to put water on it. Here's my little, well, here, I'm not going to do circles. I'll do circles for you. I'm going to do circles. I'm softening the edge of the beard on the shadow side where it meets the light, because it's a soft beard. And let me put a little wash underneath it. And then I'll move over to his hands, and then I'll finish up with the background a little bit here, or the wheel, whatever. So how do I approach the hands? What do you want to know about hands? Here's a simple exercise. Any of you can do it in any medium. Get your paper or panel, canvas, whatever you're working on, paper, panel, whatever medium, and put your hand down and mix the colors that you see under whatever light you're working under. Mix the colors, paint your hand. You don't have to even draw your whole hand. It'd be nice if you just drew a rough outline or something, do the kiss thing, like the turkey thing. Do that. Just draw a rough outline in pencil, and then just mix the colors you see. Try to get as close as you can. This is about learning how to mix flesh color. Mix the color you see when it's in the pronation. This is face down. This is supination, face up. And what you're going to see, my hands look really red, and partly they are, and partly in light, I think. You're going to see more red in this part of your hand. I don't care what your race is or anything else. This is going to be warmer, and this will be cooler. I have more yellow up here I can see in person, meaning ochres and raw siennas, and I have more red here, more blood here. So as a little exercise, paint to mix flesh, do your own flesh. Make 2 little swatches of it. So let's go over to this gentleman. Here's my palette to show you what I have, and I do have to mix a little bit more of it. I've been working mostly up in this area with my flesh colors, okay? You see, keep everything clean. So let's go down here. I'm just going to touch on his hands. I'm mixing some more basic flesh color. I don't have enough of it. I'm mixing a red, yellow. I started with magenta, which is like alizarin, and then I'm putting some ochre in it, or raw sienna. So now I have kind of an orangey looking, ugly, really ugly. Now I'm going to pick up some blue and quiet it down. I don't think it's warm enough. Excuse me, I'll find out. So here's my base wash. Here's my base wash. This is the lighter wash now, just the opposite of what I did here. The big thing I always try to keep in mind about hands, paint them, I call it like piano keys, you know, the black, the ivory and the ebony keys. I always try to paint fingers and hands. Fingers are bony. Fingers are bony. You see the knuckle, the bones near the surface, especially on this side of your hand. This is the fleshier pad side. But when I paint fingers, I try to think of like the piano keys. Here's the top of the piano key, top plane. Here's the side plane right here. And that side plane usually will be darker or have some shadow. There's not a hard, distinct line between the light and dark because it's a turning, rounding form. But I'm always thinking of boniness and angularity when I paint hands angular, not like Oscar Mayer sausages, okay? Paint them angular and bony, and they'll look better. Believe me, they'll look right. What is this thing here? Oh, that, whoop. I think I just painted his whole, hold on. Yeah, I went too far here, so I got to subtract. I just went into his jacket. Let's get rid of this. This will actually be dark blue. Let's stay down here. Also push the amount of blood in the fingers. This is base coat, not enough red. Base coat meaning I'm going to come back with a dark and model these fingers, but this is the lighter. Let's block it in flat. See, I'm talking about making life simple. I did not make life simple. Cad red, a little yellow. Let me draw with paint. Forget everything I just did here. This is a good exercise in what not to do. Now watch. I'm going to block things in perfectly, try to block things in flat. Knuckle, finger. I'm not doing the space between the fingers right now. I'm getting the attitude of the hand. Now, of course, that looks small. I know, I got you. And this is going to be a thumb. Get all this flat. I'm just leaving flat, flat, flat. And the other hand comes into play here. It's fleshy down here. Now, where do I want to stop it? Right about here, I think. There. Now, if that's too dark, which it is comparing it to the light of his face, I'm going to lift a little bit of it on the lighter side. I just take water. And I'm approximating where this gentleman's fingers are. I haven't put in the dark side yet. But that gives you an idea. And I'll show you in contrast. Let me see if that's too, that's pretty ugly. Let's stop right there on that. Let me stop on that. In contrast, I look around right next to him here, and he's wearing his Union trousers. And I think wool. I think they had wool in those days. Is what they wore during the Civil War. And these guys are very authentic. And by the way, none of this stuff is cheap. When these reenactors, what they buy, none of it is cheap. But in contrast of temperature is what I'm getting around to here. I'm looking at the photo. Let me get it down where you can see it. And I'm looking at this little blue area here on his belly. It's a great change of temperature here. This is cerulean blue. So I'll make it lighter. Just painting a shape. I'm painting a triangular shape. Let me go effect. It's not very well done. Let's get it shaped right here. Okay, and it goes down this way. But just for temperature, see the warm and the cool. And let me leave this area with a dark. I'll just lay in this dark. I see approximately, and I'll go paint elsewhere. Again, I've been painting tight again. So maybe I want to paint a little more loose. So let me go out here for a while. I alternate between painting tight and painting loose. You don't have to get too hung up on the hand or any form. All you want to do is approximate things to let the viewer know this is about what's happening. Right? That'll be the shadow side of his hand. Part of it's covered up here. Part of it's covered up. I just want to see, I'm working with temperature and value right here. But that thing bulges and I don't have anything like that. My drawing is really off, so I'm going to correct it. I just do it right here. It's not like all is lost. I'm lifting the dark that I put in to reshape my blue that I had here initially. It's drawn poorly. So I lift, clean the brush, and restate. So you get the idea. And then this will be, of course, carried downward in this painting. It's got some gray in here too, but that'll be carried down this way. Now, for like I said, painting tight, and I'm going to paint loose. What I generally do is I generally paint in 3 washes. This is strictly my first wash. I call this my first wash. Even you see, I've been modeling and altering things as I went, but it's still my first wash. But I do things in 3 washes. I paint this, and then I put it up on an easel or way across the studio where I could see it about 10 feet away or 15 feet away. And then I look at it from that distance to make the next decisions after I've done my initial blocking. The decisions will tell me, you got to get darker over here. You got muddy over there. You need some more warmth over here. I see it much easier when I put it further away. Then I come back right up to it and make those changes that I have seen from a distance. I'm softening his beard right here. I'm lifting with water right here to make it softer. So let me paint. I'm going to freelance. So if anybody has any questions, I did most of the heavy lifting here so far. If it's okay, Jeff, when I'm done with this, and I can't tell you exactly when, I'll send it on to Jeff. And Jeff, could you send it on to the members, please? Is that okay?
Yes. Yeah, we were going to ask you that anyways.
All right.
Tom, I have one thing I want to add. When you talked about how fun it is to paint people when you're traveling, one of the fun places to watch people, perhaps not paint them, is in the serpentine lines that you form in security at the airport.
Oh, gee.
You get to see the same faces again and again and again.
Yep.
Only they don't catch you staring at them.
Yep. They're going to pull you aside and arrest you, Chris.
Well, nobody's tried that yet.
Not yet, huh?
Not yet.
I agree, Chris. My sketchbooks are full. We left Chicago to go to Portugal. We started by going to Canada, Toronto, and I'm drawing people and babies and everybody else waiting, whether it's in the lounge or on their seats. And some people are falling asleep, of course.
Yes.
I'd rather have them with their eyes open. And when you get to that point, by the way, someone always asks the question, or somebody usually asks the question, let me say it this way, if I can tell somebody feels uncomfortable and they think I'm staring at them, I'll back away and I won't invade their territory any longer. Or I'll pretend I'm painting elsewhere, drawing elsewhere. And then I kind of sneak a peek and look over if I haven't finished my piece. It's a wonderful drawing I have. I shouldn't say wonderful drawing. It's a wonderful moment of being on a train going from Lisbon to Porto in Portugal. And it was a young father who was cuddling his child, not a baby, but a young child. And she just fell asleep with the curly hair. So I'm drawing his hands, I'm drawing him, I'm drawing him and her, all the above, and it just was this tender moment that what happens is interesting. So developing this feeling of sunlight even more. What happens is a couple things happen when you paint and draw, especially people. The human condition is the nature of what we do. We have to slow down to do it. We didn't get to see that much of Portugal because we were painting and drawing and eating and drinking, but we weren't there as the typical tourist. And so we set our own itinerary. But what happens is you get to observe people like Chris is talking about. You really get to observe people and all the conditions. And as long as they're in a public venue, I have no trouble with painting or drawing them. As long as they're in a public venue. I just added cobalt teal to this wash that I'm doing right here. Is in the purple area, but then I added that. And I thought, that looks interesting. Why? The value is correct. So I can get away with it. And I can entertain the viewer with this other color. I'm going to merge it into my purple now. So the worst thing I could do is continue with one boring color and just change the value of it. This is where I talk about that wet next to wet. I'm just letting things run and kind of meet each other. What else can I do here, guys? Let me develop a little in my lower. It's coming up to 20 after the hour. Let me develop a little more here. And go from there, okay? Right in this area, this little dark grassy pocket. It's almost like he's put his butt down to get against the wheel in the sun, and he kind of moved the grasses, he pushed them, it looked like he kind of pushed them aside into this little hollow area. So I'll go back from small brush. Small's tight, small is control. There's a good time to use tight and small. There's a good time not to use it. It's good if I want to develop the feeling of individual grasses in here, which I will later, but it's not good when to set the general tone of value, a bigger area of value. And what I'll do when I put in, I'll end up with this, Jeff, by the way, I'll end up by negatively painting, I'll paint the dark, the grassy area behind his hand, but at the same time, I'm shaping his hand. So it's you just take your time now. I got a big brush because I'm going to paint a pretty good fluid area, but I have to draw. I want to draw very, as accurate as I can. So now I'm going to mix my green again. I'm going with Paraline green, that dark green. I've got Viridian in here. What am I seeing in my photo? I see some blue. So I'm putting Cobalt. Not dark enough. Let's go with this. Too much water. So back to Viridian. I'll show you the mixture before I apply it. Cobalt, Viridian, and Paraline. Here's what I have. This mixture right here. This green. See my palette? Whatever you have here, guys, right here, you're going to have over here. If I have a lot of mud, guess what I'm going to have over my painting? If I have mud here, I'm going to have mud over here. So now I take my time, and I could sit down to do this, but I'm okay with standing. Let's just draw the negative shape. We're so concerned about the hand. I learned from somebody that edge right there on the top of his wrist and the top of his fingers and his knuckles, that edge is not owned by his hand. It's shared with that dark negative green space behind it. It's shared. He doesn't own that edge, that line. That dark shape owns that as well as he does. I may have distorted this here. I can live with it. So let's go. So here's my dark. Drawing with paint. Take your time. Now, is that believable that this has to come out more? I have to lift this, I think, or I don't have this down enough here. So let's go down, carve into his hand and go uphill. Now, see, that's going to look small, but give this a chance. Give it a chance. I put that down and I'm going to put water and suck it up away from it. See, I'm putting water next and just sucking it upward from that. Here comes the knuckle here, which is good. So here's basically the same mixture. Here's the knuckle area. When I talked about the bones, paint the fingers angular, the bony part here. Paint them with angle. That's as sharp an angles I can give you, but it'll come out more believable. Now I'm painting it around this next joint and it comes down. Now I'm going to put this like this because I'm on dry paper. And that might be a little pronounced. Yeah, it's a little pronounced. So I'm going to slim it down a tiny bit, keep the angularity, but I'm going to bring it down a tiny bit. Leave that go. So while that's wet, I look at my reference. I'm going to put in some cobalt teal because I sense a little of this color. Cobalt teal and maybe a cerulean. Let's just see it. When I say sense it, I see it, I think, in the photo, and I'm going to flood the area with it on dry paper. I could spray this. I do use a spray bottle quite a bit. I haven't used it tonight. But let's say I want to say all this is dry and I want to put in a softer application of my second wash. I'll spritz this with water and I won't get it flooded, but I'll spritz it. I can use a paper towel to sop it up if it's too wet. And then I'll come back with my second wash and the edges will be a little hazy and distorted, not crisp like I want it here. So I do use the bottle now and then. So that's I'm using too much of the same thing here. So let's use some of it here. Now what? Let's do a little negative painting here. Here's some grasses. My first wash, I hope will show through. You could scratch some of these out. There's different ways to do that. But see, all I did was paint negatively to suggest grasses, letting them show through from my very first wash. Yeah. And again, you can scratch. So it's a matter of timing. Let's try, by the way, this is a number 4 fingernail. So be careful. There, it's all about there, see? I just pull that out with a fingernail right there. You could do it with a palette knife, you know, whatever you have. It all depends how wet this area is. Let's get going. I got too many hard edges here, so. And then I'll go back to my original color, which I really like in combination with this. This is cool and dark, and this is warm and lively, so the sun's hitting out here. See, now I'm freelancing. I'm having fun. Gas kind of dancing around, and I don't have to worry about tightness and exactness. So give yourself that, alternate between this tight and loose thing. Alternate. This is the loose part, the loosey-goosey stuff. So where do I want to end? Let's just keep going downward here a little. His knee comes in here too. Let's go around that knee. This is the negative painting around his knee. His one leg is underneath him here. He's bent his right leg underneath him. I don't think he was going to get up right away to go do anything.
He looks
Man,
injured.
we talked about the cannons and stuff, and he was just a nice gentleman. So I remember, again, usually I get their names because I'm intrigued by, if they don't mind, you know, I ask them. And I tell them sometimes that I'm an artist and I'd like to, you know, I'd like to paint, to do a painting of you. And I emphasize, you know, that's just for myself, but I'm not soliciting from that person. See, there's a wet into wet right there, and it's blurry, and I'm really happy with it. I'm not happy with these edges out here. So let's spray them. Jeff, for sure, I'll stop in 5 minutes. Okay, at 8:30 there. Whoever's left, I may be talking to myself right now for all I know.
No, I don't think you've lost much of anyone.
All right.
You've got me for the duration.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. There's no March Madness on TV tonight, so hey, I'm good.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to splash around again. I'm picking just stuff up from the, here we go.
Even got someone watching you on our Facebook page.
You have some people there, yeah. There, see, this is kind of an accident, but partly intended, but partly not. So just let it go. Don't get fussy, man. I want this part to be a counterpoint of soft focus to the crispness of where I want you to look. So don't get crazy and say, oh, gee, it doesn't look just like the book picture. What's the purpose? What are you painting? Or why are you painting what area? What are you trying to achieve in a given area? This is a better way to say it. What I started to do here was I wet the paper. My water's not clean, which is fine. I'm going to put water down. You can see it. You can actually see the color of the water. Here, I'll get it way down here. There you are. That's the water. Without. Now I'm just going to drop some pigment in there of what I approximately see in the photograph. And let's make it a little. I'll come back with a few grasses. You know, a very few. This was like negatively down here. I can come back with positive grasses in this other part. I got to be careful how much I do here. I don't want to get into a rainbow effect. But let's draw. I'll finish up here in a few minutes, or in a couple of minutes, literally. You see the angularity of that knuckle right there? That's well done. Right there. See it? It's not curvy. It's actually angular and bony. See it? You can feel the knuckle there.
Yep.
And that's what you want in a hand. So I'll finish up. I'll just do a little bit, show you the photograph close. I'll just do a little bit of, this was negative by scraping. I'll do a little bit of positive drawing of grasses, and then we'll stop there. And the rest is just working outward, you know, from my focal point, like I'm doing right now. I'm going to soften this here. I hate this when they're sharp edges where I don't want them. So let's spritz them, and then I'll do a few grasses. So I spritzed it. It's going to get rid of some of these edges, I hope. There. All right. So let's do that. Back to a number 6 round. This is where I would sit down now and slow down. I'm painting at a pretty active pace right now, you know, talking and showing and painting. So I would sit down. If I was by myself now, I take a short break and start painting a few things slower.
If
It's
you were
important to know.
just doing this by yourself, about how long would you spend on this to finish something like this?
I'm thinking there, Jeff. If I don't, I'm not sure about the effect about vignetting here. I know I'm going to paint all of this part for sure. And down here, I got to anchor him. I have a triangular composition, real simple. That's the one big triangle. It's all I have. How long would it take? It all depends if I paint. I don't think I'm going to paint all this back here. I think I'm going to leave white right here and just kind of taper off my grasses. So to answer your question, about 2.5, 3 more hours
Uh,
to where I want it.
Do you break away and come back?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's all, unless it's a real small watercolor or a plein air study, a plein air painting, unless it's that, I'll paint this in 2 or 3
Sessions?
session, at least, yeah. And there's a plus to that. The minus is you lose your continuity, your rhythm and continuity of what I have
Yeah.
going this given day, this given hour. I'll lose that. But what I gain is a freshness of view at my eye. I look at it much fresher when I come back, and I'll see things immediately that'll pop out
Right.
that I say, oh, I wish I would have, or I can change that. I'll see it immediately when I walk away from it, come back on a Wednesday, a Friday, or whatever day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days later, I'll come back with a fresh viewpoint. So let me just end up with a little orangey red here, okay? And I'll stop. But I'm not filling in exactly the lines I've drawn in pencil. By the way, I drew this much darker for your sake. This is like a HB or 2B pencil I drew with, a 2B. Normally I use a 4H, a very hard lead. I don't like a lot of this graphite mixing with my paint, the pencil, but I drew it dark so you could see it easier. So let's do a little of these. He's got a nice pinstripe here right down his trousers. I was going to put that in. This is more of the finishing stuff, but I thought, why not? Come on. And he's got a chevron. He's got a, what do you call it? Here, it goes darker. Where do I put it? And it depends on the length of his hand. Where do I want it? Let me think here. About here. This is the edging on his cuff. Right there. And this will be blue, et cetera, et cetera. And there's, in fact, there's an orangey red coming into play. That's the trim. Then there's this, I don't know what his rank is. I don't know what any of that stuff is. There's that. There's little buttons and everything. You might be able to see the little gold buttons he has on his sleeve and on his chest here, on his belly.
Right.
Those I can either paint opaque if I want, or I can lift them with that, taking my brush like this in hand and twirling it like this with water above what here, let me try one. And I'll stop on that note. Let's just say I want buttons. I'm going to try to lift one out of a darker area here. Or I can just do it like this in my circular motion. I can do it either with the brush doing it in circles. I'm better doing it this way, with my circular motion this way. And it'll stay. I'll do one here and I'll do one in a darker area and stop. Don't even see it. So let's do one here. He's going to laugh when I do this. I'm tickling him right here. There, see, just that little softness. Where is it? Right there. Just to show you that you don't want to just say, hey, I'm going to make it real dark or real light. It's just a subtle, I'm going to make it subtle. I'm going to lighten the top of this band because it's on the top side. This turns under with his wrist. So, final questions, anyone please? Anybody have comments, or Jeff, do you want to add anything for the art group that you want to say?
No,
All right.
just open up. Anyone have any questions for him? And
I
How
just
many-
want to say that it's wonderful to see how you did the hand, especially.
Thank you. You see, it's barely suggested too. You notice?
Yes,
It's barely suggested, yet you filled it in as, oh, I see. Here's the light top. Here's the shadow side of the finger. You did it automatically. And I haven't painted his thumb, and I didn't belabor the space between his fingers. I'll do a tiny bit of that at the tips of his fingers. There's some shadows you can see. on his right
Mhm.
hand, and I'll put those in. And that'll just, you know, you don't have to do everything, guys. I haven't put any features other than his nose in this painting. And you know the man's looking into the sunlight. So that was established. This is not drawn full enough right here. I can see right here. I'm going to keep adding more to his back with him lounging into this wheel. There should be more dark pink here. Okay, anything else? Anybody have any thoughts? And I wish you all the, let me see your
flesh is
view. Let me go to
Tom,
gallery view.
the flesh application was very good. It was a very instructional for me. It's
Good.
beautiful.
Just remember, you can do your own little color swatch on a piece of reject paper, watercolor paper. Mix all a red with a yellow, a red with a yellow, a red with a yellow. Try different forms of red and yellow, and you can add a tiny bit of blue. It can be any blue, cerulean, ultra, but you want to slow the temperature down so it's not as orange. And we have veins in our hands, adults do. So you can get away with a little bit of blue, but you know, just make a
Beautiful.
little color swatches. Try to do your own hand tomorrow or whatever. Try to paint your own hand. Is there anyone else I can answer anything? Hi, Mary. Hi, Bob and Chris. And I'm looking at names, Cece and Fran. Fran's gone to get a drink. I drove her to drink. Okay. And Jack. Hi, Jack. Hi, Jack. But that's my approach. I established a full value range. The best thing I did in this painting, I got the feeling of sunlight on him immediately. That's the best thing I did in the whole painting. And it was a good objective, you know, to do that. So that's all I have. Jeff, comments, final comments?
No, I enjoyed it tremendously, and I don't even paint, so.
Well
You're-
done, Tom. Yeah, I like his face, his hair, his hat, the colors. Great
Who's
job.
that? I can't see it. Who's it, Bob?
This is Jim Brookshire. Yeah.
Oh, Jim, let me try something, Jim. I have 3, 6, 9, 10, 11 shots screen. I have 11 of your images on my iPad. I think I swiped this. Does anyone know how to do this? I think I swipe it to see the other group. I can't do it. I thought I
Go
swiped.
to
it.
view. Try
Go to
view.
I don't have view. What do I go to?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
have
better.
view. I'm
At
on an
the
iPad.
top.
Hmm?
Now, we
Top
see
right.
you.
Top right, there's a little blue arrow. Do you see it to the
I
right
don't
of
have-
the pictures?
No, no, I don't
Oh.
have it on my view. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I was curious. I know you're there. I mean, I hear your voice, and I've done it
You hear me
before. I thought I
breathing.
sw-
You can hear me breathing.
There he is.
Yeah.
There's his name.
See, I don't
I
have
think my
that.
camera's busted or something here, but.
Hi, Jim. No, I'm sorry. I can't. I know you. But I can't see you. So I wish you all the best. All right, guys. Be well in, you know, what Chris is putting together and what your art group is putting together, both in plein air and in meeting. And, you know, we're well past COVID. So, you know, you'll be getting together in person more now with the warmer weather meetings. And I just wish you all good health and keep painting well. Okay. And be well. Okay.
Thank you.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Tom, have a
Thank
good
you very
one.
much,
Thank
Tom.
you.
Have a good
Thank you.
one.
Thank you. You're welcome. Jeff, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. I
I'll
thought
be
you were
talking
saying
to you
something.
Wednesday morning.
Oh, that's right.
Oh.
That's right.
So, yeah,
I'll see you Wednesday morning. All right.
yeah, Tom being a late substitute for this meeting, I did not have a chance to do our usual interview, so I'm gonna be doing that Wednesday.
All right.
So keep
Okay.
your eyes open. We will have that sent out to everyone once the links anyways for this and the interview later this week. And check it out.
Be
Loved
well.
it.
All right,
Thanks so
guys.
much, Tom.
My
Thanks,
best.
Tom.
Great. Thank you all for being here.
Bye.
For your
Good
time.
job.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Jeff. We're signing off. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.